Yeah, here's that thing I'm supposed to put in front of videos so I don't get a bunch of angry comments. Hey everybody, Tekking101 here to bring you a list of the top 8 manga series that I personally believe need a new anime adaptation, either because they never had one to begin with, or the one that they did have was a horrible, abysmal piece of dog shit. And with that being said, I know a lot of you out there are probably thinking, Tekking, there is way more than 8 manga series that deserve a good anime adaptation. You are high as balls if you think that is the situation. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of manga series that I've never read. Like last night, I was talking about this list to a friend, and he's like, oh man, Matt, you need to put D. Gray Man on there. And I'm thinking, I've never read D. Gray Man. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure its anime was terrible if it even had one. But yeah, I'm not going to include it on this list. So for that reason, just leave your comment below on what manga that you think should deserve a good anime adaptation if it either never had one or it had a really horrible one, and list your reasons why. So let's get to the list. Number 8. Pokemon. Alright, I'm going to call myself a psychic type right now. Why the hell are you putting Pokemon on this list? Don't you know every time a new freaking generation starts in the games, that pretty much guarantees there's going to be a whole other anime adaptation created? And yes, you're correct. It's been on the air, I think, since 1998. The problem is, it's been the same thing on the air since 1998. And I'm not just talking about, like, the same basic premise. I'm talking about the formula for this goddamn show has been the same since 1998. Let me spell it out for you here. With the exception of gym battles and like when they get to the Pokemon League or whatever, the bulk of a season of Pokemon goes like this. Ash and his friends are traveling across whatever region they're in, they encounter the character of the day that's only going to be mentioned once, never going to be heard from again after this, with a very, very, very few exceptions to this rule, and then that character of the day will then introduce that Pokemon that they're talking about. Like, I don't know, maybe they're talking about fucking, like, I don't know, Wish Cash that, you know, week, and then, you know, they'll demonstrate what Wish Cash can do and how he's a bitch with electric types because he's also part ground. God, I just brought up such horrible memories with freaking Wallace there. But anyway, beside the point, you know, and then, you know, Team Rocket shows up and they do some things and then they're crazy and wacky and then they get shot into the stratosphere and they somehow survive, okay? That's basically how every episode goes. And I mean, no offense here, but there's other stories you could be doing with this. Most notably, from the manga. I understand Pokemon didn't originally start with a manga, it started with a video game, but there's manga material you can draw from to make this series way more interesting and different as opposed to what basically we've been getting the same show for the past 15 years. So you know what, I'm just going to give you guys a very simple to understand 4-step procedure on how you make a good anime adaptation of Pokemon. Step number 1, buy the Pokemon Adventures manga. Step number 2, read the Pokemon Adventures manga. Step number 3, animate that. And step number 4, this is optional, make a stone statue out of Satoshi or Ash Ketchum, whatever. Take a sledgehammer, hit it about, I'd say, anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 times until it's nothing but small little pieces of pebbles, and then burn the pebbles, and then consecrate the ground, and then drop a nuke on it. And then you just never look back at that character. Ash was great. I loved Ash. But you know what? There's other main characters in this series, not the least of which being Ethan, or Brandon, or that kid from the 4th generation that wore the beret. There's other characters you can use aside from Ash. I mean, keeping him around longer just opens up more plot holes on how old this kid is, and I know about Ash's coma theory and everything like that. More information, go watch Jaywitt's video. But yeah, it's just there's so many other characters they could be utilizing to, you know, make the anime at least make a little bit sense, you know, continuity-wise, but they just choose not to and just, you know, reset this time loop every single season, and it's just getting old and tiresome. So there you go, problem solved. Number 7. Rosario plus Vampire. Okay, attention everybody that's just seen the anime of Rosario plus Vampire. Please go read the manga version of Rosario plus Vampire. I mean, I'm a little bit of a pervert myself, I'm not gonna lie, I like tits, but the fact of what they did with that series just still vexes me. It's like, okay, we have a beautifully drawn manga, the plot is great, the characters are interesting, and, you know, we could actually do something with this. I mean, the animation on the show itself was, you know, amazing. They could have done so many cool things with this. But what did they choose to do instead? Tits, 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 and more tits! You know, they're teenage girls and they're monsters, so why wouldn't we throw in, you know, panty shots and all that shit every fucking episode, right? There's nothing story-wise that would go beyond that. I don't think you have to look at this series any more than just the simple transformation that Mocha does whenever she goes into her inner vampire self. For those of you who have read the manga version of Rosario plus Vampire, what happens to Mocha when she first transformed into her inner vampire in the very first chapter? Well, her hair's turned silver, and her eyes become a little bit more striking. They're red, I believe, in the manga. I think they're still red. But aside from that, nothing else really changes about her. In the anime adaptation, however, they completely went sexy version dark vampire Sailor Moon with this. Okay, there's like 2 shots that very clearly show her, you know, breasts expanding and then her ass getting wider, which is accompanied by like a Transformers like sound effect, which makes no goddamn sense, but yeah, that's basically what their priorities were. It gets spoken of right there. And alright, I'll give it to you. The first season actually stood close to the manga in terms of like character introductions and the very basic plot. There's just way too much fan service dumped onto this thing that really waters it all down. But hey, I don't think anybody's going to be forgiving it when you get to Cap U2 because, whoa! Yeah, they just took that plot and they just, well, okay, let's just replace this 100% fan service. No one's going to notice. Well, at least the openings were pretty cool, I guess. Number 6. Frankenfran. Okay, so this is the first manga series that's been on this list that has never had an anime adaptation, period. In fact, I remember, I think it was at the end of 2013, there was a list that was announced for the upcoming spring anime of 2014, and I remember I saw Frankenfran on that list, and I got so giddy with excitement that they were finally going to animate this shit, and then when it got updated, it got taken off, and nobody's even heard from it since, so it's probably never going to happen. But anyway, the reason I put Frankenfran on this list is because it's a seinen, and it's a pretty gory seinen at that, more so than your average one is. But think about this for a second. What are some of the most popular anime that are out right now? Tokyo Ghoul Day, I would definitely say, is one, and another one is gathering steam is Parasite, which are both seinens, or adapted from seinens, and are pretty damn gory in their own right. Frankenfran, I think, would fit right at home with this shit, and I'll admit, even as somebody that genuinely likes the series, it does get pretty disgusting at times. It really does. And I can't see some of these stories being adapted into anime. They're just that intense. But that's the great thing about it, is it's already finished. I think you got a little bit of like 62, 63 chapters of the series to work with. You can pick and choose which ones you animate. You don't have to animate every single one, but I think it would be a great addition to this shit. I really do. But yeah, anything else you want to know about it, I did do a review of Frankenfran on this channel before, so I'll put a link right here to go see that. But really, I just think it would be just fitting rather well with the current trends of anime we've been doing the past year or so. Number 5. Deadman Wonderland. Alright, I'm gonna come clean here. I'm not a huge fan of Deadman Wonderland. I'm really not. I saw the whole anime all the way through when it was dubbed on Toonami. I have read some of the manga, didn't get through it yet, but even somebody like me who's not a huge fan of it can still see that they really got screwed over with this anime adaptation, okay? You know how many anime episodes this got? 12. Fucking 12. That was it. And you know what? Whereas most anime at least will try to make the final episode of their manga adaptation, even if it has to end in filler, they'll try to make it somewhat climactic, okay? Just a little bit. Like the final episode of Bleach, you know? It had to end with Ichigo's fight with Ginjo, which is honestly not one of the, even close to being one of the most exciting fights in that series. I mean, if they wanted to, they could have completely manufactured another filler episode and just had a bunch of other crap, but no, they ended it on a high point right there. Ichigo got his powers back, everybody's happy. But with the final episode of Deadman Wonderland, you seriously will be sitting there just like, really? They're ending with that? Really? There's nothing else they could, that's not even that like high intense, you know, whoa, I can't believe shit went there. They didn't even come up with a really good filler ending for that. It just kind of just drops off a cliff and that's it. I mean, the manga ended shortly after the anime adaptation was completed, so there's really no reason why they couldn't have waited off on that for at least a year or so. I mean, even with that, they would have been able to finish this damn thing. So, seriously, what the actual hell? Number 4. Bleach. Alright, you knew this one was going to be on here because, you know, I'm the Bleach guy, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it since I talk about it every week anyway. But even if I didn't review it every week, even if I wasn't a huge fan of Bleach, I would still feel like, just by the fact that it's been running in Shonen Jump for 13 years, it kind of already, like, it deserves an anime adaptation to be finished up. It's like, it should be like grandfathered in or something, you know? It's like, if you make it to the 10-year mark in Shonen Jump, you deserve that manga series to be completely animated all the way through. You know, and it's gonna happen with One Piece, it's gonna happen with Naruto. Those series are going to finish their runs in the anime. Bleach deserves it too. And aside from that, I like, there's certain scenes that just, they just pretty much yearn to be animated. Like, my personal favorites are Yamamoto's fight with Royd, Fake Yuha, Gremmy's fight with Kenpachi, Unohana's fight with Kenpachi, and, you know, I could just go on a list of all the cool fights I want to see, but, you know, more so than the fights, more so than that, it just, it deserves it. It should be given it just because of what Bleach is and how long it has been in running in WSJ. It should be just automatically given like a Bleach 2.0 anime adaptation, sort of what they did with Inuyasha, how they had Inuyasha the final act, which haven't actually seen that yet either, but yeah, it just deserves it. Number 3, Soul Eater. How did they fuck this up? That is what I ask myself every time I think about the Soul Eater anime. They made it 51 episodes into this thing. 51! Alright, now granted, the past, I think, 4 or 5 episodes were just filler material, just to kind of compensate for the end, because they had to kind of like scratch build an ending to this thing. But they had like, they were over halfway through this series. They were up to the Baba Yaga Castle invasion. I think they had like 3 story arcs after this. You know, they had the Book of Abon, sorry, the Witch Research one, the Spartoy, then they had the Book of Abon. There was like a couple random chapters in between them. But then after that, after the Book of Abon, they pretty much jumped directly into the final arc. You know? So, you know, you just look at that and just like, you were almost done! You were almost done! You could have put it on hiatus for for a year or so. The manga ended in 2013. Just give it a little bit while for the manga to finish and then start back up. You'll be fine. But no. Animation was great. They messed up some characters. Justin Law, probably one of my favorite characters in that series. They completely messed up his character. And, you know, there's just some really cool shit that is touched upon in the manga later on. The whole thing with Kid, with the lines of Sansu, what happens when they're connected, you know, that was touched upon. Like, okay, hurry up, we gotta throw something in that references the manga to make it seem more interesting. But no, you're just making it more assured for the fact that it's going to be more difficult to make another anime adaptation of this thing. I know Soul Eater Not is currently running as an anime. I think it's still running. I don't know if that finished or not. But even if it did finish, it's just like, honestly, there's enough popularity for this thing to keep it going. I say, you know what? Screw it. Pick up where you left off on canon, and just, you know, just follow the manga. Just follow the manga. The people that read the manga will understand, even though you don't have any, like, you know, like transition between, like, Justin turning evil or whatever. Oh, by the way, spoilers. Justin turning evil or whatever. Just have it, and just go, and just finish it so everyone's happy, please. Can you do that? No, of course you can't. Why? Number 2. Toriko. Same thing with Soul Eater. They made it so far into this series, I can't tell you if it was halfway or not, because the manga's still continuing, but they made it to the point right up before this time skip that happens in the manga, and they have to make a filler ending, which is really poorly animated and very, you know, poorly executed just in general, how it finishes up, and a lot of it just doesn't make any damn sense. But, yeah, I mean, but, you know, the reason I put it as number 2 is just for the fact that the stuff that was coming in the manga after the time skip is some of the most badass shit that's ever happened in this series. I mean, look at this! Yeah, really! Look at all this cool stuff that happens after the time skip, after the Toriko and the others get major power-ups. Holy shit! Toriko's blue demon pops out of his body and punches a horse the size of a fucking skyscraper. God knows who'd want to see that shit animated, right? But this one is probably most assuredly not going to get another anime adaptation, so I don't even know why I'm freaking complaining. You know, even the anime that happened before this, it had problems even before the ending. The animation wasn't that good just in terms of a lot of the fights, you know, because Toriko is a fairly violent anime in certain parts, and they chose to air it like in the same block of One Piece, like very early in the morning, set for little kids. And if you really read it in certain aspects, it's really not... It doesn't have themes like that if you actually read the manga. I mean, would you look at this and say, oh yeah, that's obviously for kids right there? No, I mean, air it a little bit later, have some blood, have some gore. I mean, really, because they would fit completely well. Like, Studio Madhouse should have animated this shit. But that's Toriko. Not just for the fact that the stuff has happened already is so cool, and I know it's never going to get animated, but I know for a fact this is the beginning of the Gourmet World arc. There's 8 areas. They're only in Area 7. It's going to get so much cooler than this. There's going to be so many more badass full-page spreads like this, and I know that none of it's going to go anywhere. So, way to go, Toei. Way to go. And the number 1 manga series that needs a new anime adaptation is... Gantz! Oh my God! Gantz is one of the very few manga that I have read that I seriously believe its story and its action scenes cannot be properly conveyed in a manga. It's like if you were to take a Michael Bay movie and then, you know, put it all in black and white and put it in manga format. God help you if it would be Transformers. You wouldn't even be able to tell what the fuck would be happening. You know, it would just be this massive just mishmash of just black and white. You wouldn't even be able to tell which was one robot or another. Hell, you can barely tell in the freaking movie theater. But that's basically what Gantz is. Gantz's art style is so different because they actually scan in 3D models and then they put that in the manga format. And that's really cool. But because there's no color, a lot of the scenes, it's really hard to tell what's going on. In some cases, it's even hard to discern between the foreground and the background. This is begging to be animated. So everything is like on this big grand scale. You know, screw Studio Madhouse animating Toriko. They need to animate this. I'd have a damn wet dream if that was happening. I mean, like, for every night, for the rest of my life, wet dream. If Studio Madhouse animated Gantz. So, Gantz did have an anime adaptation back in 2004, and the animation just, it was good at certain points. It ended in filler, and it ended in one of the worst filler arcs I've ever seen, period. And that's saying something. One of the worst filler arcs, period. Probably the worst. If I was going to pick worst filler arc ending to any series, probably would be Gantz. And toward the end, the animation at certain points throughout the series was just really not that good. They tried to do a thing where it was like, they'd change camera angles, like if like a bunch of people were in a crowd, they would zoom in on certain people and then like switch to the next person. That might seem really cool if it was in like a 3D environment, 3D environment, but in an anime it didn't really work well back in 2004. But, you know, the thing about Gantz, though, is that if they were just to start over, it really would not take them that long to animate the whole thing, because even though Gantz was a monthly series and each chapter was like 30 pages, there was a lot of scenes where the entire chapter was just like an alien falling down, because the guy, Hiroya Oku, the mangaka, he basically wanted it to be a big, huge, grandiose thing. In fact, he released a manga detailing his creation of Gantz, and he was inspired by like big-budget Hollywood movies, and he wanted his manga to be on the same level as like a big-budget Hollywood production. That's why I mentioned Michael Bay. And, you know, you can really see that, how he wants to be this big, huge event. You know, the final arc is like this massive alien invasion of Earth, and you can really get the scope for this thing. I mean, this deserves to be a Michael Bay movie. I would never say that about anything, but yeah, Michael Bay making a Gantz live-action film, which I already know there was a Gantz live-action film, which it was okay. As far as live-action anime films go, that one was pretty good. But, you know, Michael Bay, you need to Michael Bay this bitch. You really do. He would have a fucking field day with this. He really would. But yeah, it's just depressing. Because, you know, I've been rereading it the past couple weeks, and all the stuff that's included in there really just, you know, they didn't even get close to like the meat of the series in the anime. I mean, they made it through the first 3 arcs, but that's not even close to the real meat of the issue. It's gonna sound weird when I say this, but the main cast is not actually introduced until like the first 120 chapters in is when like the primary cast of the series that is there for the rest of it is actually introduced. That sounds weird that it takes that long for the main cast to properly get introduced, but when you read it, it makes more sense, considering all the themes of Gantz and the different tropes that are featured. But yeah, that's my #1 manga that I deserve needs an anime adaptation. A couple honorable mentions that I had on here, some stuff that I've never actually seen, the animes that already exist or the manga that's been around. Berserk, I know, is one. Kingdom is another one. High School of the Dead, which I have seen, but I don't know if they are going to animate that, and besides, that's been on hiatus for so long anyway, I have no idea what they're going to do with that. And Elfen Lied, just because I've seen the anime of Elfen Lied and I've read the manga, the ending of the anime just, you know, yearns for more from that. But all in all, it wasn't too terribly different. I mean, they cut out a big part of the story, but aside from that, it wasn't hugely variant. But anyway, yeah, that was my list of the top 8 manga series that deserve a new anime adaptation. What do you guys think? Comment below. Talk about which manga series you think deserve a better anime adaptation than what they got, or if they had one at all. And yeah, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and all that good shit. Tekking, signing out.